So, trying to navigate Canada's express entry system. It can feel like you're solving a puzzle, but a bunch of the pieces are missing, right? Well, today, we're not watching some polished tutorial. Instead, we're going to follow one applicant's real, totally unscripted journey as he creates his profile for the very first time, armed with just a YouTube guide and a whole lot of questions.
And that's exactly what our creator was thinking as he started. It just perfectly captures the vibe of his whole experience. It's part experiment, part leap of faith. He's following a guide, sure, but he's also stepping into the unknown. We're about to see what really happens when theory smacks into the reality of a government website.
So here's what we're going to cover. We'll start with the very first challenge he hit, then walk through the surprisingly confusing process of just creating an account. After that, we'll get into some super critical details in the profile itself, uncover a deadline that changes everything, and finally, look at the big strategic choices every single applicant has to make.
All right, so our applicant is ready to go. He's got his English test results in hand, but he's looking at the official immigration website for the first time. He pulls up a video guide, tries to follow along, and immediately hits a wall.
You know, the crazy thing is, the guide he was watching just jumped right in. It started after the login screen, basically assuming he already had an account. And that's a huge blind spot in a lot of tutorials. It left him totally stuck, forced to figure out the most basic, fundamental step all on his own.
Okay, let's dive into creating the account. This part is all about figuring out the government's digital gateway. It's really less about immigration policy and way more about just trying to navigate this multi-layered security portal to even get in the door.
And this is where it gets confusing right off the bat. The screen gives you options like GC key or sign-in partner, but with zero explanation. Which one do you pick? It's like the first test of the whole process, and it happens before you even start the application.
After a bit of digging, he cracked it. Think of the GC key like this. It's your universal key for pretty much everything the Canadian government does online. It's not your immigration account itself, it's the secure login that gets you to the front door of all kinds of services, including immigration.
And this is the part that trips people up. Once you use that GC key to unlock the main door, you then have to create your actual IRCC secure account. This is where you build your profile. So it's a two-step process that a lot of guides just don't explain clearly.
Now, setting up this GC key, it's not just a quick username and password. Oh no, it's a whole security gauntlet. You've got to create the login, set up all these recovery questions, verify your email with a code, and then configure two-factor authentication. The big takeaway here is guard this information with your life. It's the key to your entire application.
All right, so he's in, but the hurdles aren't over, not by a long shot. As he starts filling out the actual profile, there are a few fields that really make him stop and think, and these are the kinds of details where one tiny mistake can create huge problems down the line.
This right here, this is probably the golden rule he discovered. And it sounds so simple, but it's huge. It's so easy to get this wrong, especially for people coming from countries where names are structured differently. Your passport, he learned, is the one and only source of truth.
So, why is this such a big deal? Well, he points out that in his home country, Brazil, names include surnames from both parents. And then he mentions that his Canadian bank couldn't even fit his wife's full legal name on her bank statements. The lesson is crystal clear. Ignore everything else. Whatever is printed on your passport is what you type into that box. Period.
Okay, next up, a really interesting question came up. The application asks for proof of settlement funds. But what if you're already living in Canada, you have a job, you're paying taxes, you're already supporting yourself? The form doesn't really have a clear option for that scenario.
So after chatting with a friend, he came up with a pretty logical plan. The thinking goes like this. The whole point is to prove you can support yourself. A Canadian job already does that. So his strategy was to just declare the required amount of money, and if an officer ever asks for proof, he's ready to show his employment history and bank statements to back it up. It's a calculated move based on the spirit of the rule.
All right, moving on, he's filled out the profile, he's about to hit submit, and that's when he stumbles upon something that just changes the entire game. It's a detail buried in the fine print that has massive, massive implications. 60 days. That's it. From the moment you submit your profile, a clock starts ticking. You have exactly 60 days to make any changes. After that, it's locked. Frozen. You can't update your language scores, you can't add that new degree. For 60 days, it's a live document. On day 61, it's set in stone.
And that is a huge problem. See, he was planning to take a French test and get his MBA evaluated to really pump up his points, but both of those things would take way longer than 2 months to get the results for. All of a sudden, he's facing this major strategic conflict he never even knew existed.
And that brings us to the final, and honestly, the most important part of this whole journey. This is where you realize that filling out an Express Entry profile isn't just filling out a form. That 60-day limit forces you to stop and think like a strategist.
So that 60-day clock forces a major decision. He's basically staring at two very different paths. Path 1, submit his profile right now. Get into the pool of candidates immediately, but with a weaker score. Path 2, wait. Wait a few months, get all his new qualifications in order, and then create a brand new, much stronger profile. Both options have big pros, big cons, and some serious risks.
But here's the piece of the puzzle that makes this whole strategic choice even possible. He found out there's no penalty for starting over. You're not stuck with your first attempt forever. You can submit a profile, and if it's not strong enough, you can just withdraw it, or even let it expire, and then start totally fresh with a better one later on.
So, when you look at his entire journey from that first confusing login screen to this final strategic choice, you realize something really important. The immigration process isn't just about having the right papers and ticking the right boxes. It's about understanding the rules of the system, weighing your risks, and knowing exactly when to make your move. It's not just paperwork. It's a game of strategy.